Ever thought having a podcast could be a dating deal breaker? Let's dive into this intriguing trend. In recent times, there has been a peculiar shift in the dating scene. Interestingly, some women have begun to see men owning a podcast as a red flag. Yes, you heard it right. Owning a podcast, often a legitimate business venture that requires dedication, creativity, and entrepreneurial spirit, has somehow become a cause for concern in the dating world. Meanwhile, women don't see other women having an OnlyFans as a red flag. Now, the question that comes to mind is, why? Why would a podcast, a platform for sharing ideas and sparking conversations, be seen as a red flag? The answer may lie in a misunderstanding of what podcasting really entails. Perhaps the stigma stems from a lack of knowledge about the medium, or a bias against the often informal and personal nature of podcast content. On the other hand, it's also worth considering that the perceived red flag may have less to do with the medium itself, and more to do with the content being shared, which would go against the opinion of many modern women. If a man's podcast content is controversial or polarizing, it could potentially be a turnoff for some women, leading them to see the podcast as a red flag. However, this perspective seems to overlook the fact that a podcast is not just a platform for sharing opinions, it's also a business. A podcast owner is an entrepreneur, a content creator, a manager, all rolled into one. They wear multiple hats, juggling the logistics of running a podcast, while also generating engaging content for their audience. So owning a podcast is now a red flag, but how is this perspective fair? Scene script. Many women desire a partner with a six-figure income, but what if that income comes from a podcast? This question brings us to a fascinating paradox. While financial stability in a partner is often sought after, the source of that income can sometimes cause hesitation. Why is that? Well, it seems that societal perceptions play a significant role. A six-figure income from a traditional job, such as a doctor or lawyer, is often seen as more desirable compared to the same income earned from non-traditional means like running a podcast. However, some modern women consider having an OnlyFans to be more respectable than being a doctor. But let's dig a little deeper. Is a podcast business not a legitimate source of income? Well, in reality, it requires a great deal of hard work, creativity, and entrepreneurship. It's not about sitting in front of a microphone and talking. It involves researching topics, booking guests, marketing the podcast, and so much more. In fact, the effort it takes to make a podcast successful can often rival that of any traditional job. Tell me what's hard about being an OnlyFans model, yet this hard work and entrepreneurship is often overlooked. The focus is placed on the medium, a podcast, rather than the business behind it. It's a classic case of judging a book by its cover, or rather, judging a business by its platform. This perception overlooks the potential that such unconventional paths have to offer. After all, a six-figure income is impressive, as long as it is earned fairly and respectably, not by showing spicy personal photos of yourself online. So, next time you hear about someone earning a six-figure income from a podcast, remember to look beyond the medium. Appreciate the hustle, the hard work, and the entrepreneurial spirit that goes into building a successful business, be it a podcast or anything else. After all, isn't that what we should value? Earning six figures from a podcast, is it less valid than a traditional job? Our answer, absolutely not. Earning six figures from OnlyFans, is it less respectable than a traditional job? Our answer, absolutely. It's high time we start recognizing and appreciating non-traditional income streams for what they are: legitimate, hard-earned, and worthy of respect. Is there something inherently immoral about running a podcast, or does it all depend on the content? This is the question we're going to unpack in this segment. Podcasting is an incredibly diverse platform. It's a space where anyone from any corner of the world can voice their thoughts, share their expertise, or simply entertain. It's a medium that has democratized information sharing, given a voice to the voiceless, and sparked conversations on topics that were once considered taboo. Now let's ponder on this. Is owning a podcast in itself a red flag? To answer this, we need to understand that a podcast, like any other platform, is a tool. It's a medium of communication. Labeling it as immoral would be akin to saying that a pen is immoral because it can be used to write a hurtful letter. The morality of a podcast, then, isn't inherent to the medium itself, but is determined by the content it disseminates and the intent behind it. Sure, there are podcasts out there that may promote divisive ideologies, spread misinformation, or engage in harmful discourse. But there are also countless podcasts that strive to educate, inspire, and foster positive change. What if the podcast is on finance and investing? So you would see a red flag in a guy who teaches people to be smarter with their money and who is making a difference in the world. They provide a platform for experts to share knowledge, for marginalized voices to be heard, and for difficult conversations to be had. The beauty of podcasting lies in its diversity. There's something for everyone. If you don't like a particular podcast, there are thousands of others to choose from. A podcast that one person finds offensive or uninteresting might be another person's source of inspiration or comfort. So if someone considers podcasting a red flag, perhaps the issue isn't with podcasting itself, but with the content of the specific podcast in question. In such cases, it's essential to separate the person from the content they produce. Just because someone hosts a podcast that isn't to your taste doesn't make them a bad person or a bad match. It simply means you have different interests or viewpoints. Plus, if the guy was just like you, then you would complain that he is boring and that he doesn't ignite a spark in you. Meanwhile, opposites attract. Podcasting, like any tool, can be used for good or ill. So is the issue really about morality or more about content preference? As we delve deeper into this topic, let's remember that the beauty of diversity extends to people's tastes and preferences. What's one person's red flag might be another's green light. While podcasting is under scrutiny, there's another trend on the rise dating women with OnlyFans pages. Is this a double standard? With the advent of the digital age, new opportunities for self-expression and income generation have emerged. One such platform, OnlyFans, has become a popular and very controversial hub for content creators. Here, individuals can monetize their personal content, which is more risque offerings. Interestingly, while some women consider a man owning a podcast a red flag, an increasing number of men are finding themselves dating women who have OnlyFans pages. This shift begs the question, are we witnessing a double standard in action? On one hand, a man sharing his opinions and ideas through a podcast is deemed questionable. On the other hand, a woman selling personal content, often of an explicit nature on OnlyFans, is becoming more accepted. Could this be a case of societal norms being rewritten, or is it merely a reflection of the changing dynamics of the digital age? The controversy isn't so much about the platforms themselves, but rather the perceptions and judgments that come along with them. A podcast, in essence, is a platform for sharing ideas and sparking conversations. Similarly, OnlyFans is a platform for sharing content and engaging with an audience. Yet, the societal acceptance of these platforms seems to differ greatly when gender comes into play. It's important to note that there's nothing inherently wrong with podcasts. Podcasting can foster intellectual discussion and debate. However, the stigmas attached to these platforms can create significant relationship hurdles. So, are we dealing with a double standard, or are these simply the growing pains of a society grappling with the changing landscape of digital expression and entrepreneurship? It's a complex issue with no clear-cut answers, but it's certainly a conversation worth having as we navigate the ever-evolving world of digital dating. So, in the end, are we dealing with a double standard, or just differing societal expectations? So, what's the verdict? Is it time to rethink our red flags in dating? Over the course of our discussion, we've touched on several key points that have stirred up some controversy. First, the unexpected stigma around men owning podcasts. It's a business, a platform for expression, and a means of communication. But for some, it's been misconstrued as a red flag in dating. It's important to remember that a podcast is just a medium, like a book or a film. It's the content that matters, not the platform itself. Then, we delved into the paradox of the six-figure income. It's one thing to want a partner who is financially stable and ambitious, but to dismiss someone because their chosen field of work doesn't align with your preferences seems a bit unjust. It makes no sense. We also explored the morality of podcast content. Just like any other medium, podcasts can cover a broad range of topics, from the enlightening to the controversial. It's crucial to remember that having a podcast doesn't automatically equate to spreading harmful or inappropriate content. Finally, we addressed the topic of OnlyFans and the double standards involved. While some women may feel comfortable sharing explicit content online for profit, it's not fair to expect men to be entirely comfortable dating women who do so. In the grand scheme of things, perhaps it's high time we reconsider what truly constitutes a red flag in dating.